The following episode is brought to you by Poison City Brewing, proud makers of Durban Poison Cannabis Lager, the beer that invites you to live your poison.
The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is here. It's real hip-hop music from the soul, y'all. Yeah.
How's it going, guys? You got myself and CP Razwani. I'm back again with another episode of Sludge Underground. During this pandemic, we have been trying to do these episodes, of our conference call, and we did it with Matthew last week, and it was quite a success. We did discover or go through some hiccups, but we managed to get over them. So yeah, this week we have a really special artist. It's crazy how I met this homie, because when I first met him, I didn't even know he was a rapper. I didn't know he was an artist, and that's one of the things that I feel makes him special, because he knows what another human being is. He's not like, he doesn't have a superstar mentality where these famous artists, that they carry themselves like they're on some high horse and stuff. But he's very humble, he's very cool, and don't let that take anything away from his skills, because he is hands down one of the best lyricists we have in Durban, and I actually think in South Africa as a whole. So with that being said, I'm gonna let the homie introduce himself, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Oh yeah, bro. It's a crazy intro. This is the best in South Africa, bro. That's a high bar right there. But yeah, man, this is Gque, Mbusi Talini, the real name. But I go by the name Gque, and yeah, I'm a rapper from Durban, Pinetown, and Lazi, where I represent. Yeah, man.
Aware, my G, that is very dope, man. And I want you to sort of give us a brief sort of, synopsis, in terms of, who you are, sort of where this journey started for you as an artist, because I'm pretty sure you didn't just wake up one day, as dope as you are. I don't feel you just woke up one day and started rapping and became as dope as you are right now. So where did this journey sort of start for you, Holmes?
It's quite hard to pinpoint, because for me it would then go into where I started with hip hop, if you really want to know where the journey started. Because as far as I can remember, obviously when I was younger there was those memories of Michael Jackson songs, and other artists, but really the one genre that always used to pop out that I remember very vividly was hip hop. I remember being in a car, I'm not sure whose car it was, and I remember hearing Snoop Dogg's What's My Name, where it was yo, for me since then it was yo, this is what it is, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm about. So I'd say that's where the journey started, but as far as just me really making music, I think it was around about 2002. Not making music necessarily, but writing music or raps at the very least, was around 2002. Because you gotta understand, at that time, I'm talking about the 90s when I first heard Snoop, and when you're looking around the South African sort of music scene, there's Kwaito, there's house, but there was never any hip hop presence at that time. So when I heard Squatter Camp's Rao Rao, the song was, at a friend's place around 2002, I was still in primary then. Yeah. I think that was the first time it was yo, because now I can bring it home for the first time. It's oh, okay, so there are people doing this thing. Because prior to that, it was very isolated, and it was a situation where I didn't want anyone to know because it was ridiculous. I suppose that compared to a kid in today's sort of South Africa thinking to themselves, hey, I want to make it to the NBA. It's there's no direct connection or direct link from, or anybody that he can point out to and say, yo, that person's made it from South Africa to that market or to that sort of cross continent and made it to America and plays in the NBA. So when I saw Squatter Camp, it was for me, it was as good as seeing a basketball player from South Africa make it, But obviously that was local. Where it is now is artists are able to go overseas. You look at the Nasty C's that are getting signed that side to Def Jams and whatnot. So yeah, 2002 I think was the start of the journey, really, basically, where it's yo, it's happening locally. And then on some random day I'm frequency surfing on the radio. This was back then when the radio was a thing and you didn't have cell phones with MP3s on them, and I stumbled on T-Bo Touch's Rhyme and Reason, the show he had on Metro FM. And then it was yo, this it's top 10, there are 10 songs that are from local guys and I was listening, and I was listening the first time Pro Kid went on radio, and it was just like, for me, that just blew it wide open. And from then on, this was like 2005. I think from then on, like, I was like writing intentionally with the intention of one day I'm actually going to do this as a career. So yeah, man, that's been the journey thus far. I mean, there's a lot of other things, but to get into it would take like hours.
Hey bro, that's something really special there, bro. It really shows you have been at this for a very long time. And something I really want to know is that, is there a difference between the Gque of 2005 and the Gque of 2020? And if there is a difference, what would you say that the difference is?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference, bro. Like, obviously with the experience, having been writing for a long time, I'm like, lyrically, it's not what it used to be. But I think the fundamental difference there would be that in 2005, I was like, you gotta understand, in 2005, as much as I'd been exposed to local, but I still had that sort of 90s sort of mentality where hip hop for me was American. So I'm too young and I'm too influenced by what America is. Because even today, I mean, I don't like really referring to my sound as sounding American, but I've heard it too many times to act like that's not the case. So in 2005, when I was writing, I used to sort of imitate, as most artists do. I think most artists start out that way in hip hop, especially, where you want to imitate the people that you admire. And at the time, the most exposed people, even to us as a South African market, were the international artists. So I was trying to sound like 50 Cent one day. The next day, I'm trying to sound like Eminem. The next day, I'm trying to sound like The Game. There's always sort of that feeling that it's like a voice where it's like, yo, this is not you. But at the same time, this is you. You're dope, but you're just not there lyrically yet. So I feel like me leaning in towards other people's style was a way of sort of like a crutch of sorts for me to sort of find a guideline, right? So 2005, I think back then I was just imitating, but at the same time, it was like practice in a way. When I think about it now, it's like it was practice for me using those different styles from different people. Because now if you listen to my music, which I haven't dropped yet, but obviously people are going to hear it in the coming months, it's like there's so many different styles there. It's because I've become sort of adapted to absorbing different styles. Like with me musically, I really struggled earlier on, when I started writing, I really struggled with turning the spotlight on myself, because I found that the more personal the topic is for me, the more difficult it becomes for me to write about. Like, for instance, I hadn't written a song about my mother ever for the past 15 years where I've been doing this writing thing and this rapping thing. I'd struggled to write a song about my mother because it's such a personal topic, and for me there's a higher expectation to really sort of put it across as what it is, as opposed to what I think people would want it to be, or how people would want to hear it, or how it should sound. From listening to other songs from other artists talking about their families or their sisters or their mothers or their brothers or whatever the case may be. So I think the fundamental difference for me became that the older I got, it became more easier for me to turn the spotlight on myself, because it got to a point where it was like, you can't like be forever chasing somebody else's story when you've got your own, because when you chase that other story, there's part of other people's stories that you don't understand, what might have led to a person thinking the way they think, writing the way they write. So the only thing you really can do is turn the spotlight on your own life and then just start writing that. And I think around the age of 20, that process really started to begin for me, where I was able to write about stuff that had to do with my life, but mostly sort of like lifestyle, parties, going out, friends, whatever. But the older I got, I remember about 2 years ago, I think there was a friend of mine who would realize that I had that struggle of not really wanting to open up too much about things that were too personal. And she had said to me that, like, on a random day, she was like, yo, dude, like, you're getting older now, you're no longer 20. You're at a place where if you come into this thing, you're coming into it as sort of, I wouldn't call it senior citizen, but you're much older in terms of what hip-hop has become now, where kids are starting at 19, 20. So my whole thing had to be that I was aware of that and I was okay with that, and I just lived in my own truth and just be about that. So I think like in the past 2 years, I've really sort of like become comfortable with just, okay, this is my story. This is how I'm going to tell it. Anybody who relates, relates, and anybody who doesn't, won't. And fortunately for me, it's been a situation where people will hear some of my music that hasn't been released, and, 2 days down the line, they'll shoot me a text and be like, yo, dude, I was listening to that song, man, the other day. And when you said such and such, that was such an eye-opener for me, because I've been going through something similar, and there's been so many stories like that from people. And so, yeah, I think that's the fundamental difference. It's like knowing. Because back then I knew I had the capability of doing something, but I just didn't know how to do it. But now I not only know, but I know how to do it as well, because I've accepted that, yo, this is who I am, this is GQ, and this is the story. Yeah. And yeah, man, that's basically, I think, the fundamental difference between me then and now.
And you've actually almost answered the follow-up question that I was going to have to that, in that, in terms of your lyrical content and the things that GQ writes about in his music, does that, your explanation right there, does that sort of, paint the full picture? Are you all about sort of now talking about, your life situations and everything you're faced with, or is there sort of other things as well that we can hear GQ sort of talking about on tracks?
Yeah, so like I was saying, that the more personal things are for me, the harder it's been for me to write about them quite recently. And okay, before I answer that, like with me, with music, I think what happens is, because I'm somebody who doesn't release music, I'm somebody who wants everything to be perfect before. You're laughing because you know what I'm talking about.
Definitely, yeah.
So like, when I release, I want it to be like, I don't want there to be any debate that this guy can do what he says he can do, I want it to be like, you hear it once and you get it. Even if you're not going to be a fan of it, but at the very least you can come to me and say, yo, dude, like, you really are good at what you do, and I'll appreciate that. So it's this constant need to be a perfectionist, that thing. So what happens is that I'm always growing, but I'm growing away from, like, the spotlight, so to speak. So my music changes a lot, but nobody knows it's changing constantly, because I'm not putting out any material. So like for me, I'm always one step behind myself, in the sense that when you hear what I'm doing now, I already know that probably in the next 8 months from now, in the next year from now, there's that sound that I'm chasing, that I know I'm capable of doing. I just haven't figured out how to do. So quite recently, I've been doing a lot of sort of this sing rap sort of approach to it, right? And this is something that I knew even years back. I mean, when I heard Drake, I sort of had a feeling that I could sort of take that approach in music, and that's where I want to be. Because it's very hard to tell people in 2009, for instance, that, yo, there's a sound that I have. I don't know how I'm going to get there. Even now, like, there's still sounds that I know in my head are there, but I just don't know how to get there. So it's a matter of just time, really, bro. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm digressing here so much. Lately, it's been like, love has been a very big topic, because I was in a relationship for about 7 years, and that broke off. And all of a sudden, here's the one topic where I also struggled with. Like, I could never write about, like, love. I could never write a love hip-hop song. You said to me, spit bars, that's easy. You said to me, write a love song. H. You said to me, write about your mother. That's difficult. But I think when you go through those experiences, it then changes you. Like with me going through that breakup, it triggered something, and then all of a sudden now, I'm just writing love songs one way. It's like everything that comes to me now has to do with love and relationships. There are those topics. I don't know if there's anything I haven't touched on as far as my life experiences now from a writing perspective, because I think I've covered really everything at this point. It's just that people haven't heard, so people still have that stigma of GQ is just a rapper,
And obviously, bro, with you sort of venturing into, love and writing a lot about love now, to all your fans, to everyone who has sort of, been accustomed to GQ, heavy bars, the lyricist and whatnot, sort of, what have you sort of kept, to keep those people engaged?
Like for me, it's how I view music, I think the more I write, the more I realize that the common thread are lyrics themselves, no genre is really different from any other genre. The only thing I think that changes are tempos. You know, you look at R&B. R&B in a rap song, a verse has to be like 16 bars, and in those 16 bars, you're gonna say so many things. In R&B, because they sing it and their delivery is at a slow tempo, they might have like 5 lines literally, and that's the whole verse. With hip hop, those 5 lines, you might be saying the exact same thing, but you have to have like 15 lines in there in order to cover it because of the tempos and whatever the case is. Like, I'm not very technical about it, but for me, lyricism has then become the anchor. It's like, if my lyrics are good, I can then change those lyrics into anything I want to change it into. So I've been very fortunate that as much as the people who have heard sort of this new style that I'm trying have still been like, you know, it's very fascinating that you can jump into this other thing, but you can still maintain that lyrical ability. Because I'll be like sort of singy, and then halfway through it, I'll just flip back into rap, and then flip back into singing, and then flip back into rap and singing at the same time. So for me, it's that, man. It's lyricism. That's never going to change about what I do.
That is perfect, bro. And obviously now, you know, before we get to the whole pandemic and the lockdown or whatever, because you have been giving us some gems, bro. I want us to sort of, you know, just sort of go through, you know, your whole association. You know, we had the Loft tape. It was really big. It was really massive for Durban. You know, we all had high hopes for it and whatnot. So tell me what your contribution was on that there. And as I've told you before, bro, the track that you're on there is my favorite. You know, picture me rolling, bro. You know, that's how it is, bro. So I need you to tell me, you know, what your contribution was on the Loft tape, what happened at the Loft tape, and then we can move on from there.
Yeah, the Loft tape has changed, man. I got in, like, I must have been the last song that was added on to the Loft tape. Like, I didn't even know there was a Loft tape until it was done and it was compiled. And then it was announced in the group, and then they opened the group, and then like, okay, everybody who's here is on the tape from the Loft, you know, because like how it came about, I remember the day, like I'd take a trip to Joburg with the Neon Dower, right? And so when I came back, he was back at the Loft, so I went to see him at the Loft. I'd never been to the Loft, so when I got there, I think it was just him, if I'm not mistaken, who was in studio, and he played me a beat, and he's like, yo, let's do something here. So I started writing that first part of the hook, and then I'm like, okay, because I've got this thing where I write where I know where I'm going to stop even before I put words to it. You know, I'll tell you, I'm going to grab the first half of that song, or the part that I'm going to write is probably going to be the second verse of the song. You know what I mean? Like, that's my writing process. So I wrote the first half. He added that second part, you know, that downtown, windows down, picture me rolling. Yeah. You know? And then we left it as that. It was just a hook. And then, you know, because there was so much traffic at the Loft, you know, we hardly spent a lot of time on one song. So you might start a song, maybe you might put a hook there, you might put a verse, and then, you know, you'll take it home with you, you'll write, and then you'll come back and you'll record it when you're done. So on that particular day, we wrote the hook. I took it. The song was initially meant to be on the tape that I was working on. So me and Neil in Joburg had recorded 3 songs already, and an interlude, so that's 4, right? Yeah. So that was going to be song number 5. And so I took it home. Obviously, it's at the Loft, and then there was another day where I went to the Loft, right? Yeah. And these guys had come from a video shoot. And so we're sitting in studio, so it's me and it's Space. I don't think Neo was there, or Neo might have been there. So Space is like, yo, man, is there anything that you have that I can jump on? I feel like writing some music. So I'm like, yeah, cool. So I play him that song. You know, at that time I hadn't added my verse. It was just the hook. So he writes the verse, he goes on first. But then I'd already had my verse. I'd already memorized my verse for it. So I jumped on, I did my verse. So we did that. We left it there. So now it's in my folder. It's supposed to go into this mixtape that I'm doing. And so, like, I think, I don't know if it was a few weeks later or a few days later, that group gets open, and then, like, everybody who is in this group is going to be on the Loft tape. This is what the Loft tape is about. And then they put the track list there, and then I see the song, Picture Me, with Space. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Because, like, for me, music is a very communal thing. I don't have, like, very rigid guidelines where it's like, no, but that song's meant to be for my tape. It was like, oh, okay, Like, especially because I think for me, it's because that was the first time I was around other artists. So for me, it was very cool that, you know, practically unknown. Nobody knows me on the scene, because these other guys, man, they've had their exposure. O'Neal, the Spaces, they put in performances, all that stuff. So it was very cool for me to be able to be a part of that collective as a newcomer to that collective, and still have that sort of where they're like, yo, dude, this is good enough to make it onto the tape. So for me, that was like a sign that, yo, dude, you know, this whole thing that you've been thinking, this whole dream that you've been pursuing this whole time is actually real, because there's other people now basically telling you that, dude, you're good enough. And for me, those people who were on that tape, I rate, obviously Durban's a very big place. You won't know everybody. Yeah. But I rate very highly some of the people on that tape, you know, as musicians, as lyricists. So for me to be included on that was very awesome. So then I get the story much later that, Bills, who owned the studio, he came through. They were going through the music. They were compiling the track lists for the Lost tape. And then he heard that song and he was like, nah, this is definitely going in on the Lost tape. So that's how that happened. So I didn't even know there was a Lost tape until there was a Lost tape. You know, it's not like I was privy to all the information. And plus, I just recently started hanging out at the Loft. So yeah, that's how that came about.
That is really special, man. And you know, I would really like for us to also just dive in a bit very quickly into your, you know, you mentioned Neo a lot there, and many of the artists that have actually come through to the podcast have mentioned him quite a bit as well. You know, P Dog sings high praises of him, Yashna sings high praises of him. So with you, what is it about, you know, him and sort of, you know, when it comes to you, what have you sort of learned through, you know, working with such a highly regarded sort of producer or musician?
You know, as with everything in life, people are different, you know. I've been in studio, like, for instance, let me contrast between Neon Dao and Audio Sims, someone else who I've been around quite a bit during the Loft days, because he was living at the Loft as well. So, like, with Audio Sims, like, the Loft is upstairs and downstairs. Audio Sims would always be downstairs, headphones on, and he's just making beats. When he's done with making beats, he'll come up to the top, he'll pop on in, and he'll be like, yo, dudes, do what you guys want to do. That's the beat I'm giving y'all today, and that's that, right? With Neo's more of like sort of central to everything in a sense, because I think it even comes down to, I suppose, your personality as a person, you know? Neo is very open with people, like his control of the studio, sort of his presence in the studio is quite dope for me to observe, you know? He's got this ability of making anyone feel at ease, you know, during a recording process. And that's dope for me, that kind of energy where you feel like music is not a task and you feel like it's just creating. There's never any mandate that, yo, we're going to make a trap song. Trap is the thing that's happening right now, so that's what we're going to do. You know, it's just get in there, you know, we'll go through samples. You like that sample? Let's see how we can flip that sample. Let's see how we can record to that and what we come up with. And that's the process. And for me, that's what I always wanted. Even before I got into a studio situation, I never wanted it to be, like I was telling you earlier, Uzi, like whenever I want to do something, for me, it's the hardest thing to be able to do when I come through and I'm like, oh, I'm going to write a love song. I'm never going to write that love song. But if you come through and you're like, yo, let's go through the sample. Yo, I'm feeling like here, if it's sort of like this vibey, I've got this vibe from it, then, you know, I'll connect with what you're saying. But if you're like, mandate, this song, it sounds like a love song, it needs to be a love song, then I fall apart, you know? So for me, it's quite dope, you know, seeing somebody who works like that, who's just always open to new ideas and never shuts down an idea, you know? Yeah. Once he's made the beat, it's your beat. Wherever you want to take it, you take it there. And, you know, you always find a way to make it dope. And that sort of gives you confidence as an artist as well. So I think that's the dopest thing about working with him. It's like, I feel like he instills that confidence in you and your ability. You know, I don't know if that's the case for everyone, but, you know, that's the experience I've had with them.
And it's really nice, bro, getting to know, you know, all these people that have sort of played a role, you know, in becoming who you are and growing as an artist, bro. It's really special. And thank you for all this insight, Holmes. And now I really want to get into the final segment of the show. You have been dropping us some gems every single day since the shutdown, or rather since the lockdown started, bro. You've been dropping us some freestyles. You know, you've been keeping us entertained. You've been keeping, you know, us positive and whatnot. So sort of break those down for me. You know, you have have been doing quite a lot every single day, bro. Big up to the consistency. And yeah, man, tell us what those are about, and sort of going forward, you know, what else we can sort of expect from them.
Yeah, so I was actually bullied into doing those. From my point of view, I feel like I was bullied because, like, I'm very finicky about how I present myself to people. You know, like, I think it's the reason why I've got so much, like, because I've got a lot of music. I could put out a tape, but I'm never happy, which then goes back to that thing about being a perfectionist. I'm never happy, even when people are like, dude, this music, like, put it out, this is so dope. Like, I don't know what I'm always chasing. So when the idea came through, obviously now it's the lockdown, so I can't go to studio. So then the idea was just record yourself rapping to a beat, and then we'll post it. It was meant to be a video, but me and cameras, it was like, nah, you know? So then they're like, okay, just do voice notes. But then now I'm so used to being in studio that I have that expectation for something to always sound professional. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, a voice note for me just bothers me. I listen to it and it's just like, So then I remember you were telling me initially, I remember that day you told me that it's possible to record on a phone and then sort of like do your little hustle that way, record it on the phone and then send it to whatever program you're using and then mix it a bit. Yeah. So that was what I started, because fortunately I'd already been playing with Fruity Loops, you know, because I wanted to learn how to mix and master. That's always been my thing, to like know how to mix and master, because I'm very picky about how things sound. Mm-hmm. I'm always fiddling with EQs on, like, even on, like, what's that program on Windows? You know, the Windows media player. Yeah. I'm always fiddling with the EQ when I'm listening to music. So fortunately, I'd already started playing around with Fruity a bit. So I record on my phone. You know, this was the first day I record on my phone, and then I put it on that Bruno Mars beat, and we put it out, and, you know, the response is dope, man, you know? So from there, it then became obvious that, okay, if we're calling this day 1, we have to do a day 2, and a day 3, and then a day 4, and a day 5. And the more I post, the more people now have expectation of, yo, what's happening with day 6? Because once now it's at a point where if it's like 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock towards 2 o'clock, people then start asking me, dude, where's day 4? Where's day 5? Where's day 6? You know? So it's really snowballed into something I wasn't expecting. And the response to it has been quite awesome, man. But yeah, I was bullied into that one, man. But it's quite dope, because the whole idea, you know, with the lockdown, you know, it then became quite obvious that people were going to be online a lot. Yeah. And, you know, and somebody turned me on to that fact. And when I look at it now, and I'm looking back to that, last Friday was the first one, you know? Yeah. Was it Friday or was it Saturday? It could have been Saturday. I can't remember properly. But when I look back at it now, you know, it's quite dope seeing what it's becoming.
And sort of, bro, moving forward with it, you know, what sort of, you know, content can we expect from them? You know, there must be, about a week left. I'm thinking about when I'm going to be posting this, whatever the case may be, you know, leading up till the final day of lockdown, you know, what surprises do you have for us, and what sort of can we expect, you know, from these freestyles? You know,
the whole thing was, these freestyles were meant to be like recaps of the day before. That's how they started out. So on Tuesday, you know, I'd drop Tuesday and I'd be talking about what was happening Monday. On Wednesday, I'm talking about what was happening Tuesday. That was the idea behind it, you know. But for me, like, it then goes back to what I was talking about. When I intentionally try to do something, it becomes very difficult for me. So when I got into that box of, okay, I have to recap yesterday's events, now I'm finding myself having to find things to talk about, of which didn't come naturally to me, and it still doesn't come naturally. So it sort of, for me, became a thing of just using a lot of references. You know, I reference a lot of, you know, a lot of lockdown terms or whatever trends are happening online. I'll reference, like, don't rush challenge, you know, I'll have a don't rush line somewhere in the song. So that's where it's at now. You know, initially it did have, that first one was very Corona based, and it seemed like I was going to pull off that sort of recap sort of approach to it. But I think the rapper in me just took over. And so now it's more like punchline based, but it had to have things that refer to sort of the lockdown or anything that's surrounding what's happening during the lockdown, be it on social media, be it on the news. So it's still going to be that going forward. But now I'm trying to break it down because it's been like very random. There's nothing that's been planned. It's just every day. I think if I find a beat online, if I like the beat, I'm going to rap to it. But now I'm trying to take an approach where it's more planned out. So say on Monday, you know, I'm looking at the days of the week and I'm looking at how I feel about the days of the week. So Monday is a very somber day for me. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that, you know, it's the first day of the week, you know, people go to work, everybody's recovering from the weekend. So I feel like it's a very somber day where people don't want to be hearing loud music or anything like that. So for me, I'm at a point where I'm considering, so Monday maybe do something like a trap soul beat, you know, find a trap soul beat, add to it. Tuesday, maybe take requests, you know. Wednesday, maybe do sort of like hard bars on Wednesday. And then Thursday, you know, maybe do old school. And then Friday, you know, obviously Friday being a weekend, do something with more up-tempo, you know, like club songs or whatever, things that are big on the clubs or whatever is charting at the time, and do a cover of that, you know. So it's becoming a bit more structured in the coming weeks for me, my approach to it. But it's still just going to be about bars, man, because that's what it's about for me. It's about, like, displaying sort of the lyrical side, because, like I was saying earlier, I've been experimenting with a lot of, like, different sounds that moved me away from doing a lot of bars. So for me, it's also been sort of like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's sort of been like a reintroduction for me into that sort of pigeonholed GQ that I used to see as being pigeonholed, because I wanted to move away from that stigma of GQ is just a bars rapper. But now, you know, I'm doing this, and with freestyles, you can only ever have bars. So now, you know, I get to do bars again, which is dope because that's like the foundation for me, and that's always going to be the foundation. So it's going to stay as bars, but it's going to be a bit more structured in terms of approach.
No, my G, that is very solid. You know, we've come to the end of the show, bro. In fact, the set time is almost out. So I just want you to sort of give us handles, bro. Where can people get in touch with you online, your social media pages? And yeah, man.
Yeah, so on social media, on Twitter, it's at GQ, all caps, at GQ_RSA. And then on Instagram, it's GQ_RSA, no caps there. And then YouTube, I don't want to get into a YouTube page. I haven't been on my YouTube page for a minute, man. But that's still under the other name I used to use, and I don't really want to talk about that name, man.
Oh, yeah, no, that's proper,
you
bro.
You know that other name. I couldn't get that name. But YouTube, I'm not as active, you know. It's been mostly, as far as the posting these freestyles, it's been on Twitter and Instagram.
Oh, yeah, that's solid, bro. And yeah, before we close out, are there any shout-outs you want to give out, bro?
Yeah, shout-outs, man. Yeah, I mean, big shout-out to Felicity and Joburg, man. Felicity and Pistol, you know, they're part of my team. They've been helping me a lot, you know, with the posts as far as conceptually, you know, how to move on social media, because I don't really have much of a social media sort of presence. I'm somebody who likes to keep to himself. So, you know, they've been very instrumental in those posts. She's the one that handles the graphics. In fact, Felicity does all the graphics for what I post. He puts the videos together. It's been very dope. Pistol, I'm always on the phone with him when I'm stressed out about ideas and I'm stressed out about, you know, I don't have anything 2 hours, 3 hours before we have to post, you know, and he's always on the phone with me, man, you know. So just taking me through, calming me down, you know, sort of quelling that perfectionist in him. So shout out to Pistol, man. And shout out to the fam, bruh. You know, they've been showing a lot of love, pushing the posts on their own social media. So yeah, man, shout out to everybody else, man, who's keeping up. There's a lot of people that I don't know, unfortunately. But yeah, man, the responses have been very great.
That's solid, bro. Thank you so much once again for joining us on the show, GQ, bro. You know, always a learning lesson.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Oh, yeah, that's tops. Guys, tune into the episode. It's going to be available on Apple Podcasts, Sludge Underground Podcast. Do subscribe, give us a review and everything. On SoundCloud, Sludge Underground Podcast as well. Facebook, Sludge Underground. Obviously, Twitter, @Sludge031, and Instagram, @Sludge Underground. Drop us an email, sludgeunderground@gmail.com. My name is Nasip Zwane, @Zwane031. Guys, it's been GQ. You know, keep up with him during lockdown. Do enjoy. It's another solid freestyle by GQ. I think we need to give him a DIY horn in 3, 2, 1.
It was all good just a month ago. Things just up and changed in about a month or so. But do you love money more than yourself? Would you rather have a check or have your health? Would you rather live or make a living? Juxtaposition, hard decision. Gotta keep going when your heart's not in it. Some days you're up, next day you're down. Gotta wear a smile even when you're on a frown. Gotta be grateful, gotta be thankful. Gotta keep your head up. Always keep going, even when you're fed up. There's folks in the street, they got nothing to eat. No place to go home, they got nowhere to be. Sometimes life can put us down, it's not so easy though. Got to keep on going even when it's difficult. Got to remember to have HOPE. Fill up on LOVE. Joy and peace is all you need, it's all you need. Yeah. To all those going through the struggles,